The brothers also at times had to protect their territory from rival gangs. Eddie Killeen was the black sheep from a respected Georgetown family.
Bag him up.
And he established a gang that, again, was into bootlegging and gambling. He, though, hired men and used aggressive tactics.
Dig faster and hurry up and bury him.
They used to go around the speakeasies and say, "You will buy our beer or we'll throw any other beer out in the street." One such person who was a chief enforcer of his tactics was a guy by the name of Joe Nally. Joe had a tough beginning. He had to go to reform school, and even before that, his mother went to the authorities to complain that one of his teachers took a horsewhip to him. And so Joe was, the police described Joe as a person who was capable of anything. He was especially good with a knife. Like I said, he was an enforcer, and one such time he used to go around for Eddie Killeen and go into speakeasies that were owned by other people and break up the speakeasy and threaten the customers. And in one case, he apparently cut one of the Warren brothers in such an episode. Could have been one of the older brothers, I'm not sure. Well, if you set the situation up, one night, my dad, two of his friends, Victor Toots Giuliano and Don Whitey Wallace, decided to go up to Wonder Bar on U Street. U Street back then was really one of the hot places in town. Pearl Bailey described it as the Black Broadway because it had so many good night spots up there. They went up there, and whether it was planned or not, my father and his two friends found themselves sitting close to Joe Nally and two of his associates. Joe Nally and my father began to talk, and the bouncer then suggested they take it outside, which they did. And they came back about 15 minutes later. And according to accounts, Joe Nally went to his table and my father went to go to his table. But my father, instead of sitting down, he walked over to Joe Nally's table, apparently not happy the way the conversation went. And Joe Nally was about to sit down, but he stood there, and they apparently stood each other for a while. And before you know it, 4 shots rang out. And the papers described the people in the speakeasy, and there was about 200 that night. They were pushing through doors, overturning tables, climbing out windows. It was a real scene of panic there. Years later, my father gave a slightly different account of what happened that night. He asked one of my friends who knew about the shooting, asked him about it, and he later came back and told me what my father said, that my father was sitting at Joe Nally's table. He had his gun out under the table, almost like you see in the movies, and Joe Nally leaped across the table with a knife to cut my dad, and that's when he pulled his gun and shot him. The fact that there was one bullet under the table, and the fact that Joe Nally was known for his proclivity with a knife, kind of lends some credence to that story, but who knows? My father and his two comrades that night somehow ducked being held for it. The police were unable to find any witnesses that would testify that they saw the shooting. But it really changed, brought a lot of heat down on the gang during that time.